Tattoo artists of Reddit, what is the strangest thing you've tattooed? Had a woman come into the shop one time way back who looked like she'd been in a tanning booth 8 days a week for the last 40 plus years. She wanted to get her locked up man's name tattooed on her, but she wanted it down there. She convinced me to get one eye closer to her jukebox than I was comfortable with, and had me tattoo Billy Jack's belongings so far up in there that I think we are common law related now. Name slightly changed for anonymity. Best part is that a couple weeks later Billy Jack called me from prison. Tell me how much he loved the tattoo. It was a collect call too. God damn it. Thanks for bringing that memory back. I was almost over it. Lol. In prison I knew a guy with half his name scribbled backwards on his forehead. The only explanation I could come up with was he was tattooing himself in the mirror and halfway through realized it was coming out backwards to everyone, so called it quits. Girl had a dream about marrying a dolphin. She got a tattoo of her as a mermaid, rising from the water in an embrace with the dolphin. Halfway through, after hitting on me the whole time and telling me stories about an abusive ex, she started arguing about the color scheme and left with only the outline and some shading. I was a piercer for a few years at a local shop. During my first year of my apprenticeship we had a younger, 20-something male who had come in to get his forehead tattooed. I handled majority of the paperwork for the tattoo artists at the time as well, and he had requested the word "fuba" to be done. He went back into the booth with the artist at the time and was told to come back the next day after he slept on it because you know it's permanent, and we wanted to make sure he was 100% certain. To all our dismay, he returned the next day to proceed with the tattoo. He had told us while getting tattooed that it was payback to his mother for favoring his older brother their whole life, and he wanted to return the favor of how much she messed up his life. I'll never forget the smile on his face as he walked out the door. When I was getting one of my tattoos, the artist showed me this horrific piece he was begrudgingly working on for a client. It was a big arm tribal piece, and mixed in the tribal were little guys lifting weights. It was for a gym bro. One of my drunk friends poorly tattooed the words "your name" onto the butt cheek of another drunk friend. Also he could use the "I've got your name" tattooed on my butt line. I used to work with a guy who had a tattoo on the side of his body that was a woman squatting over a pond full fire hydrant pissing into it. Inside the pond was floating decapitated heads. When I asked him WTF was this, he told me that the woman was his ex and the heads were all his kids. I asked why is she pissing on them, and he told me he has a piss fetish. Not a tattoo artist, but my son has the entry stamp from his favorite nightclub tattooed on his forearm. It got him free entry for a full week before his friend stole the club's stamp, and they bought a new, different stamp. Not an artist, but have seen two awesome examples. Woman at a tattoo convention had the names of all her ex-boyfriends tattooed around her anus, so every time she wiped her A, she would cover them in sh. Marine I served with was a tattoo apprentice, so he took his kit everywhere on a special assignment after some heavy drinking. Another Marine in our detachment requested a special tattoo, the great big green weenie with red veins spelling USMC along the shaft. The location for the tattoo, his left butt cheek. My wife knew someone in school who was in a big hurry to get their first tattoo, and it turned out it was of a surfing pig. A zombie wearing a purple basketball jersey hacking a guy's arm off and vomiting. The guy's also vomiting up at the zombie in the streams of the two are meeting in the middle. I've also done a cartoon fish being choked by another fish's poo. The choking fish is trying to unravel the poo. At the top of this sleeve there's a first holding an aquarium net to cross joints over a Jamaican flag, and the smoke forms the date of the first time he smoked weed on a cruise with his parents. Obligatory, not an artist, but I was in the shop getting tattooed when a girl came in and got all you can eat for under $1 on her waistline with a dollar bill under it plastered right there for any man or woman who was gonna go down on her. Hands down the greatest tattoo I've ever seen, even if it was effed up. Sure, she's doing real well these days. Worked with a guy that was changing his shirt one time, and he had a big elephant head on his stomach and the trunk disappeared below his belt. Linny saw my notice and without me saying anything just nodded and said yup. Not an artist, but while getting my first I saw a guy getting a Pikachu blowing his brains out with a revolver stuck in his mouth tattooed on his thigh. He actually stopped halfway through and told the artist to add more gore. Obligatory, not a tattoo artist, but you know those stereotypical hearts with mom written on a banner over the heart. I know a guy with that, but instead of a heart, it's a semi-realistic dick with wings, mom banner and all. I'll tell you the most effed up thing I refused to tattoo. A couple brought in a picture of their tiny stillborn baby and asked me to do a palm-sized portrait of it. It was purple and had a pained expression. They just stood there looking vacant and hopeful while I composed myself and summoned the words to let them down easy. This job can be crazy sometimes. Work in a tattoo shop. On a particularly slow day, one of our artists tattooed fingers going in womanly places on a girl's shoulder. Don't think it was ever done, but someone else called up wanting Mickey Mouse in a spade, flipping off the viewer with a Louis Vuitton bandana around his mouth. Don't think it gets trashier than that. Not a tattoo artist. I work at a prison. I see lots of outrageous tattoos. There is a guy we call Joker. He has element of a deck of cards all over his face. His attempt was to look like a Joker card. Lots of teardrops. One guy shaved his eyelashes and had the word convict tattooed over each eye as a replacement. His in-laws must be proud of him /s. I'm reluctant to take any measures to suggest who they are, but I think most probably regret their decision. I have a full-blown native guy in the facility I work in that is absolutely plastered with white supremacist tattoos, swastikas, the SS lightning bolts. His entire back is taken up by the Nazi Party eagle, the works. He's not very popular amongst anyone. One of my friends was drunk and high in 9th grade and tattooed a kidney bean with a face on his thigh. Years later we would still laugh when he showed us how it was, in fact, still on his leg. Another one of my friends in 7th grade told me he got bored on the bus and tattooed a big smiley face on his forearm. I prayed that he was just joking, but I believed him once he pulled the tattoo needle out of his jacket pocket and showed me. Indeed, it never went away. I always thought it was dumb as F to do something so permanent at such a young age. But he died in a motorcycle accident a few years later in high school. So in retrospect, I guess I'm glad he did what he wanted to do. I started to tattoo my name on my ankle in 11th grade, but then halfway through I started thinking that ankle tattoos were for girls and my name was a very stupid thing to tattoo. So I scraped /scrubbed /cut it off a few days later. I'm not a tattoo artist, but I worked with a guy who was a known loose cannon in our industry. My foreman at the time told me to go introduce myself and ask him what his wife's name is. So I went over to the guy, introduced myself and asked what my wife's name was. I expected to get punched or yelled at, so I braced myself, but the effing guy put his cigarette in his mouth and whipped out his hammer that in all caps said Elizabeth. I was shocked and remember saying holy F man. Jesus Christ all caps too. Good for you. The guys had a good laugh at me and my reaction. Not sure this counts, but I did those silly pen and marker tattoos back when I was in school. Kids would pay me school currency for tattoos I could do as I was apparently pretty good at it. This went on through high school. I'm also very well educated in world history, even at a time when I probably shouldn't have known what WW2 was about, or those who fought in it. I think you see where this is going, and you're right. Someone tried to pay me school money for a swastika. I flatly refused. He then got pissy and tried to have my tattooing operation shut down for refusing to tattoo him. This just ended up creating more of a market for it. When I was eventually called into the office to be reamed out by the school staff, I cut them off mid-rampage to ask, "Do you even know why Nazi complained to you in the first place?" They didn't, naturally, so I told them. That ban was quietly lifted. I've since actually drawn stupid stuff like penises and stuff like that. One girl asked me to do a poem on her back. I just wrote no on her back in a really fancy font and design. Got a good laugh out of that one. Not a tattoo artist, but my mum's got a mallet in the past. So one time I was sitting in the shop waiting for her while she was using the bathroom, and it took a while. So I wandered over to one of the chairs and started browsing one of the books. And this 20-something hot blonde chick walks in. I guess she thought I worked there because I wear a lot of black and I was near a chair. She proceeds to tell me in horribly graphic detail without letting me get a word in edgewise how she wants blooming roses tattooed done around the area of her underparts, and she flipped her mini skirt up to show me she was going commando, just so she could gesture around the area. My jaw was on the floor at this point when the guy walked in from getting lunch, and bless him, but he was far too late, ran over there and slapped a hand over my eyes and told the lady I was 14 and didn't work there. She was slightly embarrassed and very confused, but after confirming he worked there, began to tell him what she wanted with her skirt still flipped up. I finally left with my mom after hearing that explanation twice. About a month later my mom came back for a touch up, and I asked about the girl. Apparently she was tired of dealing with her pubic hair and decided a tattoo on the area would be the best solution to ensure hair stopped growing.